And also, please be reminded that this forum will be recorded and broadcasted through the official Facebook page of the Pimentel Institute for Leadership and Governance.
And lastly, to our participants who are watching and joining today's forum through PILG's Facebook page, you can actively participate in our discussion through sharing and commenting on our Facebook Live. Thank you so much.
Again, empowering afternoon participants, we officially welcome you all to the third session of the forum entitled The Mandanas-Garcia Ruling and the Local Governance in 2022 Elections. I am Kyriel Dayantolete from the Power of Filipino Youth,
And I am Jewel Alefane from Power of Filipino Youth.
and we are your hosts for today's forum.
This program is brought to you by Pimentel Institute for Leadership and Governance, Hans Seidel Foundation, and Local Government Development Foundation. Now, before anything else, may I request my partner, Ms. Carol Tolete, to lead us to the opening prayer, to be followed by the singing of the Philippine National Anthem.
Now, as we gather this afternoon, we invite your Holy Spirit to inspire, guide, and teach in everything that we do today. We give our anxious thoughts and receive your peace. We pray that through your divine guidance, we would learn how to listen attentively to the inputs of our speakers and panelists. May we appreciate their effort in imparting their knowledge to us. May we interact in the forum and discourse so we can comprehend more about the subject matter of the forum. May we value each other's contributions as building blocks towards harmony and peace. Grant that as we interact with one another, we recognize the fact that all our activities here today should be accomplished for your greater glory. Amen. That in all things, God may be glorified.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang magiliw, telas ng sinakalan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyag ka ng magiting, sa nagatang tutok sa simoy at sa langit mong pagaw, ay hinatang tulad, awit sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na naghihingi, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pamay di maghihingi. Lumalang araw ng walhati pagsinta, mo'y langit sa piling mo. Ang inigaya ng pagkay mga api at mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
All right, thank you so much for that invoking and well-spoken prayer, partner. To formally start our webinar session, may we call on Commissioner Gwen Pimentel Gana from Commission on Human Rights and Pimentel Institute for Leadership and Governance for a welcome remarks. Let's give her a virtual round of applause.
Good day, everyone. Maayong adlaw sa tanan, magandang araw sa lahat. Thank you very much for attending this webinar series for voters' education. Today, we will be discussing the implementation of the landmark decision of the Supreme Court dated July 3, 2018, entitled Congressman Hermelando Mandanas versus Executive Secretary Ochoa, consolidated with a petition filed by Governor Garcia. The Mandanas-Garcia case was an en banc ruling, hence was the collective voice of the court. The Mandanas-Garcia ruling undoubtedly will have far-reaching effects in local governance in the years to come, since it imposes dramatic increase in the fiscal resources to local government units. Along with greater economic resources at its disposal, is the consequent empowerment of the different levels of our local government units. With greater economic power, greater responsibility is demanded from our local government officials elected to office. That is why the discussion of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling is very much tied with the election of our local leaders this May 2022. We need leaders who are competent and responsible in the discharge of their authority. Otherwise, the noble objectives of empowering and devolving more powers and resources to local government units will remain but an illusion. We need to elect local leaders who will ensure that the increase in fiscal revenues be translated into the development of their localities and into concrete services that are enjoyed by their constituents, and that every peso spent will be accounted for. We need to elect competent local leaders who have the vision to use these economic benefits to uplift the status of his or her municipality, city, or province so that their constituents need not go to the metropolis in search of opportunities to better their lives. We must not forget that the ultimate objective of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling is for local governments to be catalysts in paving the way for a better quality of life for every Filipino, especially those in the fringes of society. Today, we will be listening to experts share with us how the Mandanas-Garcia ruling, if properly implemented, will impact our lives, but more importantly, only if we elect the right leaders in these very crucial May elections. I hope that our discussion will elicit a conscious effort to find ways to elect the servant leaders we so deserve. Once again, welcome to our webinar series on the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. Thank you and God bless us all.
Again, thank you so much, Commissioner Gwendolyn Pimentel-Gana, for that wonderful remarks. Now, may we call on Mr. Alex Raul Jojo Villano, a member of the Local Government Development Foundation Board of Trustees, for his opening remarks. Let's give him a virtual round of applause. I think, partner, he's not around. You may take it
You
away.
know, okay. You know, Kai, this series of Forum Mandanas Garcia ruling implementation webinar series for voters jump off to LGU seminar training after election is very much significant, especially considering that its main objectives rest on informing the general public with regards to the significance of the implementation of the landmark Mandanas Garcia ruling to the work and or performance of LGUs in the coming years, and also to make the choosing of the right local leaders more critical.
That's right, Drew. With this, our forum's discourse will revolve around two particular topics. Our initial topic, which is what is the Mandanas-Garcia ruling, will include discussions concerning first, the background of decentralization that led to the filing of the landmark case and the salient point of the decision. While our second topic, which is the implications of the landmark ruling, will encompass discussions about its impact on the national government, especially on the national government agencies, considering the way the decision is to be implemented and the way forward, which will tackle the expectations of the LGUs and the imperative of the national government working with the LGUs with another LGUs. And that's
Yes.
exactly why we are gathered here today for us to unfold what is the Mandanas Garcia ruling and its significance to the local governance. And at this juncture, we would like to take this opportunity to introduce our first guest speaker. He is a senior economist and financial specialist with extensive experience in the financial and development planning, budgeting, and implementation of development and capacity building projects in different sectors. He has advised national and local government agencies in the areas of public finance management, local government development planning, budgeting and finance, revenue generation, resource mobilization, and financial management. He served as the fiscal decentralization expert in local government finance and fiscal decentralization reform program, and also an economist or public financial management expert for the European Union or the EU supported Philippines Health Sector Reform Contract, the third EU funded program to support the Philippine health sector reform agenda. He likewise served as the local government unit PFM or budget consultant of the second health sector policy support program from years 2007 to 2010, and the chief economist of the National Tax Research Center, and then subsequently became the LGU finance or budget specialist of the USAID supported ARD or Governance and Local Democracy Project from years 1997 to 2000. And prior to these, he served in the Department of Finance for 20 years and served as a consultant to Bureau of Local Government Finance, Bureau of Local Government Supervision of DILG. Currently, a part-time faculty member of the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Valenzuela Graduate Studies, here with us in discussing the implications of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. Let us all welcome Dr. Antonio Avila. Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon, and thank you, Diane, for the introduction. And first, of course, I would like to apologize in the sense that supposed to be Professor Ed would go ahead before I present my, but he is on the way, but there's some problems. But anyway, it's because there should be some background about how I'm going to discuss it. So I will start with a very brief background about the Mandanas ruling. Okay, so the Mandanas ruling is, of course, I hope most of you know already about it, that it simply expanded the base of the share of the local government from the taxes collected by the national government. Okay, as per Section 284, the share of local government is within 40% of the internal revenue collection. However, Mandanas and Garcia petitioned the Supreme Court saying that it should include other taxes, particularly that of customs duties and other taxes. So the Supreme Court said, agreed with the petition and said that in the computation of the share of the local government from national taxes, it should include the collections from customs. So basically, it started, it was intended to increase the tax, the base of the 40%. And so this means that more resources will be given to local government. Okay, so that anyway would mean that there will be more or less around 35% as computed, or 37% as computed by DBM, 37% in the increase of share of local government from national taxes. With that, what it means that more resources, as mentioned by Commissioner Gana earlier, that there will be more resources that's going to local government. Now, in response to the Supreme Court ruling, the national government issued Executive Order 138, and subsequently the DBN, JLG, DUF issued implementing rules and regulations on how to implement Executive Order number 38. So that's basically a brief background of what it's all about in the Supreme Court ruling of the Mandanas-Garcia case. Okay, so I will start with my topic would be about the implications of the Supreme Court Mandanas-Garcia ruling. Next slide, please. So basically, my presentation would tackle the following. First is the impact of the national government, especially national government agencies, considering the way the decision is to be implemented, and what is the role of NGA in the implementation of the Supreme Court ruling, and how should the NGAs engage LGUs in the implementation of the Executive Order 138, and what are the issues and concerns in the implementation of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. And the second major topic that I'm going to discuss is really how we're going to go to move way forward. And this means that we'll discuss the imperative of the national government working with local governments and local governments working with other local governments. So that means that what would be the expectations supposed to be of LGU. And under this major topic, I would answer the following questions. How should LGU work with NJAs to implement Executive Order 138? And second is, how should provinces, cities, municipalities, and barangays work together? What is the role of each level of government in the implementation of Executive Order 138? Next slide, please. Now, I mentioned earlier about how the national government responded to the Supreme Court ruling. Now, of course, one of the main concerns of the national government is about incurring a larger fiscal deficit if more resources will be given to LGUs coming from national government. So this means that they have to be to care to to plan formulate a plan in order that there will be no problems regarding fiscal deficit. So for fiscal sustainability, the national government said that this time we will have what we call as a full devolution, and this will be taken from the programs, projects, and activities that are being implemented by the national government agencies, but which are supposed to be delivered by local government. Okay, so this is the how national government responded in order that to maintain fiscal sustainability. So I think that's the main concern actually of the national government. How, especially under the present pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, that there will be some problems, especially that will be incurring large debt. I think uh, the government debt reached probably around 57 or 57% already of the GDP. And of course, the one of the principles that the national government adopted is to say, in principle, the NGA should be doing the steering, while the local government should be doing the rowing. Basically, I would interpret this as basically the policies, standards, and so on would basically be coming from national government agencies, while the implementation will basically be done by the local government. And third is the existing PPAs of NGAs will be slowly phased out to avoid service delivery gap until 2024. So this means that starting this year, there will be no, there will be some PPAs that will be start to phase out, you know, and of course, it will be transferred uh, in principle to local government. And because of this, there will be no new PPAs, which are within the realm of the revolved function, will be proposed or implemented by NGA starting 2022. And in line with this outline of the principles adopted by the national government, the national government felt that there is a need to conduct capacity building to prepare local governments to assume the responsibility of implementing the PPAs to be transferred to them. By the way, if we had devolution 1.0 when the local government code was enacted, I would say this time it is devolution 2.0, okay, although in a smaller scale. Next slide, please. Okay, here's a list of some of the programs that are supposed to be devolved. These are supposed to be devolved by national government agencies and the corresponding appropriations based on the 2021 GAR. So here in the list, the number one, the amount of the biggest amount that to be transferred come from the Department of Public Works and Highways, totaling around 280 billion pesos. Because and these are mostly in capital outlays, which means it will be roads, bridges, infra, and other infra projects. And the next one would be the SWD. It's about 57 billion, which I think the bulk of this, or around 27 plus, and I'm going to cite this later on, is about the pension of senior citizens that will be transferred, that is being implemented by the SWD. And then, of course, and so on. So these are all the list of programs and projects that are possibly to be devolved or transferred to local governments and the corresponding budget. Next slide, please. And so here are some of the issues and concerns regarding the implementation of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. Of course, as I said earlier, it says that there will be this is the concern of the Department of Finance regarding the fiscal position of the national government when there will be more resources that will be transferred to LGUs. And coupled with that, because of the pandemic, the tax revenues have been, going down because of lack of economic activities, and also the need for more funding for the COVID-19 response. It has, means that more resources are needed by the national government to have these activities in place. And of course, because of this, then the local government, particularly the Department of Finance, is really very much concerned how to address these issues. And of course, it says that the next administration's economic team should adequately address all these problems. And second issue is while this is according to CPBRD, the Congressional Policy and Budget Reform Department of Congress, okay, the House of Representatives, while the Supreme Court's ruling is straightforward, greater amount of resources for LGUs in implementing devolved functions, there are concomitant and equally important issues that the national government needs to contend with. Foremost of this, the ruling's effect on the national fiscal situation, which of course is the concern also of the Department of Finance, and also the term fiscal considerations like the transition calls for examination of programs, activities, and projects to be devolved. And most especially, and more importantly, how the intended outcomes can be achieved as they transfer to LGU some of the PAPs or programs, projects, and activities as it continues to perform despite being devolved functions. So this will be some concerns regarding the impact when these PPAs will be transferred, or how these PPAs will be delivered when these are transferred to local government. Next slide, please. So the next one is coming from Department of Agriculture, U Sector in Adriano. He said that the most important task now is how to clearly delineate the roles and responsibilities of the national government agencies so services are devolved to local government. And therefore, the problems of delineation has become an important issue. Although we've been into this for the last more than 30 years, but still there are certain issues regarding who should deliver these services and what level of government should do this. So this is the main concern of the Department of Agriculture. And the Sorsogon governor, Escudero, said also that he was very much concerned regarding the transfer of more or the full devolution of services mandated by Executive Order 138, simply because he said that while the local governments may receive more resources from the national tax collection, however, the cost of delivering these services might be higher than what is intended for. So this means simply that at the end of the day, local governments might find themselves having insufficient funding for some of the devolved or transferred functions. Or, by the way, there's some issues regarding whether it is a transferred function or devolved function. It's because actually these are already been devolved. Most of them actually are been devolved, but these activities or functions were done by national government agencies simply because some local governments were not able to do it, mainly because of the lack of funding. This is particularly true in the case of, say, agriculture. In the case of agriculture, where you have the devolve of the extension services for farmers and fisher folk, but many municipalities have not been able to do that simply because of the lack of funding for them. And so the national government or the Department of Agriculture will have to come in order to deliver some of the extension services to be provided, supposed to be provided by local government municipalities. Okay, so that's I think one of the issues there, and also the additional sum of 200 billion is expected to finance other development projects. So it means that whatever additional amount that will come that will go to local governments, then the local governments will have to decide where they're going to put this based on the development plan, and therefore if the bulk or the PPA that has to be transferred to them does not fit into their development plan, so what are you going to do with it? Okay, so that becomes problematic. Most especially because there are also certain priority areas the local governments will have to address. For instance, we have the housing, social services, water sanitation, education, and others. So whatever extra money they might have, then it might, it might not really not enough in order to finance all the development projects, particularly for poor local provinces and municipalities. Next slide, please. Okay, the next issue is about the disposition of the IRA for capital outlay. As again mentioned by Yusik and then Fermin, is left at the discretion of the LG officials. So it means that if local executives decide that those extra funds will instead be spent for instead of spending for agricultural projects should be used to build other projects like sports complex, barangay stations, health center, etc. Then it would, it the the projects that are being undertaken by the Department of Agriculture will be jeopardized. Okay, so I mean this is an issue that has to be resolved, of course, at the local government level because of local autonomy. And another big issue here is that while there are a lot of, while more resources will be given to local government starting this year, 2022, and the transferred PPA, once they start to transfer to LGUs, then let us consider the fact that for next year, there is a very high probability that the national tax allotment that local governments will receive will decline by around 11.4% because the tax revenues, which are the basis of the 40% national tax allotment, declined by 11.4% in 2020, which is, of course, the year, the basis of the third preceding year is the basis in the computation of the 40% that local government should receive in 2023. Okay, so I think you have to consider this, especially for local governments. In your preparation of the devolution transition plans, you have to consider the fact that there might be a decline or decrease in your resources that you are going to receive compared to 2022 and whatever you receive in 2023 by around 11%. Of course, the exact amount will still have to be determined by DBM, but more or less 10% will be probably a good ballpark figure. And so I think it is important that one of the measures or the part of the devolution transition plans of LGU would be to have measures on how to generate revenue, okay, resource mobilization and fiscal management. And fortunately, we have the BLGF or the Department of Finance will be conducting capacity building on this in this area, and so I think local government should be able to to address the possibility of a decline of the national tax allotment by raising more locally generated revenue. And this is one of the issues that I mentioned earlier about the big amount, around 57 billion, that DSWD projects as plans to devolve, transfer to local government. And this is about DSWD social pension amounting to 23.6 billion for indigent senior citizens as to be implemented as per Republic Act 10868 or the Centenarian Act of 2016. However, there is that issue because in I think about about more than a year ago, there is the law which created the National Commission of Senior Citizens, and it's headed now by Chairman Quijano. And this says that according to that law, the rating commission says that the function of this social pension will be transferred to the National Commission of Senior Citizens. Will this be part, however, because of Executive Order 138, will this be also be part of the plan to transfer to or devolve to LGU? I think that's one big question mark that has to be resolved, I think, sooner or later, because it might jeopardize the privileges and benefits of senior citizens. Next slide, please. And and then I would like to point out that in the Mandanas ruling, affected only Section 284, which means that it's only the computation of the share, okay, computation of the share of local government from national taxes. So yun lang po yung affected by the Supreme Court ruling. So as I said earlier, it increased the base. So it includes now, instead of only internal revenue collections of the Bureau of Internal Revenue, it now includes the collections from Bureau of Customs. So more or less, that's why it increased the base. So that's the source. That's the source of the increase in the resources going to local government. However, I would like to emphasize that it did not affect the Section 285 of the Local Government Code regarding the allocation of the shares of LGU. So if you recall, here is actually in slide, here is the sharing allocation of the national tax allotment. It is, of course, shared among provinces, municipalities, and barangay. And then the share of each province, cities, and each level of LGU will be distributed in accordance with the population, land area, and equal sharing. So this means that whatever defects or weaknesses that the built-in weaknesses that are brought about by this formula, then the the problem remains and it might exacerbate simply because there will be more resources. What I mean is, even in the case of Makati and Quezon City, where the internal revenue or the national tax allotment probably just around 5 or 3%, no, of the total revenue nila. Pero that, since it's also money coming from national government, that is, resources, so this will have to be, under the law, they are entitled to receive, which means that they are going also to receive. In fact, probably in absolute terms, they might be getting more compared to other LGUs, no, in terms of absolute amount. So I think that kind of problem remains, and it was not resolved by the Supreme Court ruling, Mandanas-Garcia ruling. So because
Tony,
of this, the
Tony,
World Bank,
Tony, excuse
yes,
me, Tony, excuse me.
yeah, yes,
Minor
Manny,
lang, minor lang sa presentation.
yeah,
Dito,
yeah,
yung land
yeah,
area
that's,
yata baka 25 ito. Kasi
yeah, yeah,
95-50. Alin
yes,
dito?
yes.
Kasi 95 lang
Thank
ito.
you, Manny. Yes, yes.
Alin
Thank
land
you,
area
Manny. That's
25?
yeah, no, 25. That should be 25.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Manny. And of course, that should be land area should be 25%. And of course, there's also the error there in that section 285 instead of 185. Thank you, Manny. And this is the distribution formula, allocation formula, which was not changed, of course. And because of this, the World Bank noted that the built-in flows of the formula would, in a sense, some better off LGUs would be getting higher amounts, in absolute terms, compared to other poorer national government agencies. Okay, so that is a concern, which of course, as I'm going to discuss later on, what are the implications of this? Then another implication of regarding the matching of the devolution transition plan prepared by the national government agencies and the local government. So, as mandated by Executive Order number 138, the national government agencies will have to prepare devolution transition plan. How they're going to transfer the PPA to the LGU. And in the other end, the local governments are also required to prepare the devolution transition plan. Now, I think the problem here when we go into detail, okay, how will we match the devolution plan of the the national government agencies with the devolution plan of the local government? Most especially if the PPAs that were prepared from the perspective of the NGA will not fit into the perspective or development plan of the local government. So it really becomes problematic how we're going to do that. How do we reconcile the devolution plans of NGAs and LGUs. And of course, while NGAs and LGUs are preparing the devolution plans, I think one issue that should be addressed also is in this transfer of PPAs, what should be the role of the private sector? What should be the role of the private sector in this? And of course, one issue that is should also be resolved uh, among NGAs and LGUs is what is the optimal cost sharing among NGAs, provinces, cities, municipalities, and barangays. I will provide some insight into this by citing the approach taken by the Department of Agriculture. And lastly, what is the impact of the Mandanas ruling on the private sector? Apektado ba yung Mandanas ruling? Would it mean more resources coming from, would also be, will the private sector benefit, and what should be the role of the private sector? Okay, so these are some of the issues that that I mentioned regarding the implications of the Mandanas ruling. Now, let me go to an example of how to engage LGUs by a government agency, and this is the case of the Department of Agriculture. Next slide, please. So, the Department of Agriculture, and I'm sure this would interest some of you, especially may nakita ko na meron mga yung planning officer ng Bulacan, ng Quezon, and others, no? Yung mga provinces with very high, large agricultural sector. I think this is interesting regarding the approach taken by the Department of Agriculture. As I mentioned earlier, one of the biggest problem actually is the agriculture sector is regarding the extension services, the delivery of extension services. Many of the local governments, especially the municipalities, because of lack of funding, they don't have any agriculture. Okay, and in some instances, anecdotally, there are some instances where the municipality appointed temporarily the gardener of the municipality as the agriculturist. So just to be able to have this position. Of course, these are some of the anecdotes that states that there's a really problem of municipalities regarding how they are going to deliver extension services. So the Department of Agriculture thought of addressing this issue, and they have formulated what they call as the province-led agriculture and fisheries extension system, or PAFIS. Okay, and of course, you can there is a manual for this, and you can download it from the DA website. But the PAFIS mainly addresses the long-standing challenges in agri-fishery extension, especially the need of an institutional arrangement to integrate and strengthen extension services at the provincial level. Okay, as mentioned there in the preface of by DA Secretary Dar. And here, PLGs are they said that the provinces are in much position to plan and implement a province-led agriculture and fisheries extension programs because first, they have the economics of scale. They are bigger than municipalities, of course, but not too large like the region. And they are closer to the realities of small farmers and fisher folk from a wider perspective. And third, it can provide sustained annual budgets to improve the livelihood of smallholder farmers, and fishers folk. So next slide, please. And with how are we going, how is the Department of Agriculture implementing? First, they are going to establish uh, they are going to establish what is to be established by the DA regional field officer, agriculture training institute, regional training centers, and Bureau of Fisheries, and of course your bureaus and staff and other attached agencies. But I think one of the important component here is involve all stakeholders, particularly state universities and colleges, and you have also the other the provinces, municipalities, and cities, and other sectors. Okay, and this will also be in partnership with the private sector organization and rural-based organizations and farming and fishing communities. So all these stakeholders will be involved and the establishment of the parties. And the national government here, the under this strategy, the national government shall guide and do the steering while the LGUs do the rowing and the implementation of the parties. In this strategy, it is emphasized that DA will co-plan, right? Co-plan, co-invest, co-implement, and co-monitor priority projects in the provinces, particularly as they embark on commodity specializations to maximize comparative advantage. Okay, so this is the in principle is what the FAP is all about. Okay, next slide, please. So in more details, I think here are some of the how the DA will implement this, and it is also included as part of the manual here of the DA. So here you have the preparatory activities, which includes partnership building, and of course it will conduct. What is important here, I think, is the conduct of a stakeholder consultation workshop, which means that all stakeholders will be involved, okay, in the preparatory activities. And after these preparatory activities, then they're going to establish now the parties. And this will be established through endorsement to the Sangguniang Panlalawigan and approval of the governor. And then there will be MOA signing with DA and other partners. And in phase 3, you have they are going to establish a party center where it will, of course, where the office will be located. There will be an office that will be established in which all the staff will be there and other stakeholders will be going to be part of it. And phase 4 would be mapping out of the cooperative process mapping out for the agriculture and fishery extension program. Okay, and through and adapting the interventions for the priority commodities and the PCIP and other plans. PCIP is the provincial commodity investment plan. I think this is being this was done in many provinces with the support of the PIDP, a World Bank project. Okay, and so this is more or less an overview of how the Department of Agriculture will implement the engagement of LGUs. Next slide, please. So this is also the diagram of how the PAFES will be implemented. In terms of co-financing scheme, okay, so the PAFES develops collaborative programs with DA and with DA and the province negotiating for the terms of implementation, and then probably having the MOA, and then you have and based on the MOA, then DA and the province will propose funding. There'll be some negotiations on how much should be DA's counterpart and the funding also coming from the provinces, which of course will be reflected, included in the respective appropriations law or ordinance. And then, of course, the release of funds. And then after that, it's the implementation. Then there would be a phase where there would be monitoring and evaluation and submission of progress report for monitoring and evaluation for the next, ready for the next cycle. Okay, so I suppose that the development of programs will be done every year in order that we could review and adapt other activities that need to be implemented for the succeeding years to be again included as part of the budget of each of the national government as well as the province. And probably part of this would be kung ano yung role ng cities, component cities, and municipalities. So this is more or less an overview of this co-financing scheme under the province-led agriculture and fisheries extension system that formulated by the League of by the Department of Agriculture. Next slide, please. So here is the log frame. Okay, so this is the log frame of that. So meron siyang log frame, and I like the way how they did it. Simply because this from activities, ano yung mga output ng activities, and then this output will lead to outcomes, and these outcomes will have to again until it reaches the goal. So this really the logical framework that they would follow in implementing the FASI. And to start, I think what important here are the outputs. So the output number one, there would be province-led agriculture and fisheries extension system established. Okay, of course through partnership building, etc. Then output number two is collaborative provincial agriculture and fisheries extension program work and financial plan developed. Because there will be cost sharing here. And of course, output number three would be the co-financing arrangement. What would be the share of the national government, the DA, and also what would be the share of the provinces and also the municipalities or cities within the province. And then output number two, which is in line with Executive Order 138, is about the capacity building. So this would be in relation to that, there would be some capacity building to be undertaken regarding extension services and how this is going to do it, etc., to local government. This will be undertaken by the Department of Agriculture. And then output number five is an integrated digital platform for advisory services established. So probably they're going to do what would be the platforms, what they're going to do, of course, the problem of internet connectivity and availability and speed is there, but of course they have to sooner they have to look at this and say whether they could use some of the digital platforms in order to help farmers and fishers in the implementation of extension services. Next slide, please. Okay, so that I think is a good model. It's in this, but the details you can get it from the manual. There's a manual of operations that's prepared by DA, and I again said you can have a copy of this by downloading it from the DA website. Now, as part of the as this Commissioner Gana said earlier, that we are, and we know that we are facing a milestone here by electing national government officials and local government officials this coming May, next month. So there is a possibility that there will be uh, a new yung slide mo na CDP guidelines, please. Then there is a possibility that there will be a lot of new local government officials and so on. But in addition to that, there will be need for many local governments either to update the comprehensive development plan or to prepare if there's none. No, especially for municipalities, if there is none, they have to prepare now the comprehensive development plan so there to guide the incoming officials in their governance responsibility. And of course, it is along this line that I would like also to emphasize that I hope the people, the residents of local government, will have to elect not only those that are competent, but in addition to that, I hope that they will be electing development-oriented local chief executives and local officials. And as I think, if you look at the situation of many LGUs, you will see that there's a lot of progress going on that has happened simply because the local executives and other local officials are development oriented. And of course, I would like to start with your indulgence. I would like to cite my city, no, Valenzuela City, because of the leadership of Mayor Rex Gatchalian. We have the Valenzuela has improved a lot, and it can be seen in what project activities. That's why I also teach there at the Pamantasan Institute of Valenzuela as graduate studies. But in fairness, really, the leadership of the Gatchalian, since they are development oriented, it brought progress a lot to our city. So anyway, I hope the other LGUs will do the same. If only local the residents there, they are going to elect this coming May 9 elections development oriented uh, leaders, political leaders. Okay, so now along this line, I think we have to look at, of course, many here are planning officers, and I know you are familiar with this, but the DILG has prepared what they call a CDP Plus guidelines, and you can also download it from the website of the ILG. Okay, and why CDP Plus? It's because it includes already, it integrates into the planning process, planning framework, integrates the climate change and disaster risk reduction. Okay, in the comprehensive development plan of the LGU. So this it's a very good guide, and I think there LGA or DILG, I think, and the regional offices, I think, are conducting some uh, workshop in order how capacity building on how to do the comprehensive development planning in the respective LGs. So it's also this CDP Plus guidelines is consistent with the five-step process of the CDP Illustrative Guide, which means you start with organizing and mobilizing the planning team, reviewing existing plans, revisiting the LGU vision, and preparing ecological profiles, structured list of PPAs that will address or that will achieve the LGU's vision, and then preparing the local development investment program and implementing and other implementing instruments. And of course, particularly, dapat meron din kasamang financing. Okay, so that's why yung sinabi ko kanina about the capacity building of the Bureau of Local Government Finance is very important, and you have to really look at it and be capacitated in order to raise more locally generated revenue. Next slide, please. So this in the next slide, here is the process. No, in the diagram, this process how the CDP preparation is being done under the CDP manual. I will not go into the details here, but of course it involves some planning, LGU vision, setting of goals and objectives, and investment programming, and budgeting. No? Kasama na po dito kasi yung budgeting. I think plans without budget will never be realized. Okay, so again, and of course, there's this been observed that there is a weak link between planning and budgeting. So I think you have to take note of that. No? Maraming plano, pero hindi ho napupunduhan. So that means that you really have to be very careful when you choose or you plan and programs. See to it. Of course, the additional funding from the Mandanas ruling will come in handy. No, it will be a good source of additional revenue. Next slide, please. So what's the way forward? One, of course, aside from the preparation of the devolution transition plans by NGAs and LGUs, then I think there's also have to regarding, of course, regarding the how you're going to implement your devolution transition plans. That's why I included the CDP plan of the LG manual. And also, I also cited the a model of how the national government agencies will have to engage LGUs through that province-led agriculture and fisheries extension system of the Department of Agriculture. Well, while this is anchored or covered as agriculture, I think other sectors and national government agencies can do the same. I mean, you can do it in social services, and you can also do that in other sectors. Okay, so I think that you have to take a look at it and adopt it. Okay, and it will be good for local governments. It is because it should be how the national government agencies and LGUs can work together. Also among LGUs, provinces will lead, and of course, it will include municipalities and component cities and so on. Okay, so but I think there's another way forward is how do we deal with the IRA reformulation? I mean, we know that I said earlier that the weaknesses and problems in the IRA allocation remain the same. So, meaning to say, uh, even the high income cities and municipalities still receiving additional resources from the national government agencies. But of course, there is the growth equity fund. Okay, I will not mention that later on. But I think there's already can still be reformulated in order to address these issues. I don't think so. No, I mean it's already too late in the day, and uh, such initiatives already will not prosper. If we had done that before, we have implemented this, or we have all the time really as early as 2014 or 2015, maybe experts have already predicted about the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. And in fact, there were already computations that the original actually petition says, no, the original petition of Garcia and Mandanas and Garcia is that the local government should be getting based on the formula of including other taxes starting 1992. Could you mean dapat retroactive hanggang 2022. Yun ang gusto ng Mandanas and Garcia ruling. So, but that I think would it involves billions and billions of pesos that mabuti na lang sinabi ng Supreme Court hindi perspective na lang. So when we issued the in 2018, sige, perspective na lang, and then of course na nagpanic ang national government and said, okay, the petition of Supreme Court na hindi naman ho dapat na retroactive, no? So again, that's why the decision was a little bit delayed, or the implementation was a little bit delayed, but finally it is implemented this year, 2022. Now, why it was so late? As early as 2015, it should have engaged with the incoming administration. They should have already engaged Congress to amend the. I mean, personally, I would have to say, okay, let the sharing scheme under the IRA formula stay. Nobody will complain. Okay, but the additional resources will have to be distributed in different ways. So that yung mga poorer LGUs will have to be getting more. No, yung mga ganun sana, no, na-reformulate sana yung additional resources. But it did not happen because of the fact na hindi na-engage yung Congress at the early stage. Kasi kailangan, there is a need to amend Section 285 in order to do that. So, but again, we missed the opportunity uh, by not engaging Congress, and so we are again stuck with the same problem, vertical and horizontal problem, because of the that formula under Section 285. Next slide, please. Next slide. So anyway, so again, as I said earlier, there's again where to address yung sinabi ko kanina for LGUs. They Executive Order 138 included the gross equity fund. Okay, that's a good idea, and actually it's based on equalization fund that we have been saying ever since, you know, and this is also being done in other countries. But of course, what they're saying here is it is an executive order. So DBM uh, proposed 10 billion pesos for the equity fund, but Congress approved only 1.2 billion. I mean, ang laki, no? I mean, napakalaki na amount. So, I don't know. Mabuti na rin at meron, but it has a starting point. But the problem there is, of course, aside from medyo maliit yung amount, the second one is yung Committee on Devolution has not yet formulated how they're going to distribute itong 1.2 billion na growth equity fund. Okay, yung formula, I think, yung League of Cities and League of Provinces, I think they should be proposing some formula factors to consider. And are we going to institutional some provisions of the EU 138? I hope so. Some of them, most especially about growth equity funds. No, I mean, I hope so. But you know, changing the formula, I don't think that would be politically, feasible. Kasi marami na magre-reklamo dahil may pera na, nasanayin na, di ba? Nandiyan ng pera, etc. That's exactly the problem why the IRA formula, in spite of so many studies undertaken, hindi pa rin nare-reform yung IRA formula. And of course, the second to the last one is about the participation of CSOs. Kailangan po natin yung participation nila in order to enhance transparency. Then lastly, as I said earlier, in devolution 1.0, we committed a mistake in the sense that we did not follow the mantra of fiscal decentralization, which is finance follows function. Di ba? Ito yung pera, ito na sa inyo. Then ito yung mga dapat nyong gawin. So hindi yung wala siyang one-to-one correspondence. Like here is the operation of the hospital, and here is the funding, kayo nang bahala. Sana ganun. But of course, hindi yun nangyari. And we committed the same mistake, this devolution 2.0, because we failed to engage Congress at the very start of implementing the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. So that's all. Thank you very much for listening.
Again, thank you so much, Dr. Antonio Avila, for that prolific discussion concerning the implications of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. And we would like to add few key takeaways din po that there is an extensive need for the capacity building on revenue generation, resource mobilization, and also the fiscal management to be conducted by the Bureau of Local Government and Finance. And also, one of the main takeaways is that the national government agencies will be doing again and again the steering. The local government units will do the rowing. But then again, this two should go hand in hand with one another as a devolution strategy. Now, we also have an underlying task as to how are we going to clearly delineate the roles and responsibilities of national government agencies whose services are devolved to the local government units. Drew, take it away.
Okay, now moving forward to our next esteemed guest speaker. He is the Executive Director of the Pioneer Development Organization for Local Governance, the Local Government Development Foundation, or LOGODEF. He has worked closely with various government and non-government organizations, developing policies, programs, and plans for local governance. He had served as an expert in governance in the country and abroad under the auspices of various international organizations such as European Union, Japan International Cooperation Agency, Asian Development Bank, and United Nations Development Program, to name a few. He recently served as a political economy expert for USAID Chemonics Deliver Mandanas project that assisted in the formulation of the Mandanas-Garcia rollout with the national government. He has been a member of the consultative committee to review the 1987 Constitution, the Constitutional Commission that drafted the Bayanihan Philippine Constitution, chairing two of its 9 committees. He has written a number of books on federalism, political systems, and local governance, and taught in various universities. He is a fellow at Brenthurst Foundation in Johannesburg, South Africa, and before that at Leibniz University of Hanover. And he is also a popular political analyst recognized by the media in the country and abroad, discussing what is the Mandanas-Garcia ruling and its significance to local governance. Let us all welcome Professor Edmund S. Tayal. Let's give him a virtual round of applause.
Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Naimbaga malam. Maayong hapon, maayong buntag sa inyo tanan. I see so many participants from the different provinces. Thank you for the support from the League of Provinces, led here by no less than the Executive Director, Ms. Sandy Paredes. So I hope that your participation here would be very your work for local governance. No? I will be taking my video off so as to prevent the lagging of the internet, and instead share with you the slides that I will present. In a nutshell, actually, my apologies for coming in late and having Dr. Avila take the first presentation. Magandang hapon din, Architect Neil. No? Good that you're able to join us this afternoon. It's good that Dr. Avila took the first slot. No? So basically what we're going to do this afternoon is to proceed with the how-to discussions, and now I'm going to discuss with you the rationale or the background or the political and historical consideration. So if you noticed, the presentation of Sir Tony has focused mainly on the essential function of planning. Kaya tuwan-tuwa ako nung nakita ko na maraming PPDO officials na nandito sa atin ngayon. No? So what I'm going to highlight really is the need to strengthen intergovernmental relations. What Dr. Tony has emphasized to work with the ELDON and the relationship between the local and the national government, particularly the national government agencies that are involved with the further devolution, should really be working hand in hand and rather closer this time with the local government units. I think that's the only way to move forward. I'm also glad to update the participants that as we discussed yesterday, for example, I'm happy to learn from no less than the director of the Department of Interior and Local Government, Bureau of Local Government Development, that they have yet to actually finalize what are the PAPs that will be downloaded. So medyo nakikinig sa atin ang NGA sa Miss Sandy. Hindi po pwede yung basta sasabihin na ito yung mga proyekto na ginawa namin sa national at dito kukunin yung pondo at ito kayo na ang mag-take over. No, yun yung gusto nating i-clarify essentially dito sa presentation na to. So anyway, let me go straight to the presentation now. Okay? And I will close my video. Anyway, hindi nyo naman ako kailangan makita. No? What you need to see is the slides. No? First off, I entitled the presentation as Further Decentralization. No? Ang napapansin ko palagi sa theme na ginamit ng gobyerno, ng national government, ay full devolution. Ako simple lang ang aking rational dito. Hindi pa natin kasi matuntun kung hanggang saan yung devolution na tinitingnan natin. Kasi sa totoo lang, decentralization is essentially a work in progress. We have yet to really see the extent of its potential. In fact, this is the very explanation why the development reached by the different local government units always depend not only on the inherent characteristics of the LGU. Ito ba ay landlocked? Ito ba ay coastal and therefore seafaring? But madalas dependent sa leadership ng local chief executive. No? Kaya ang nangyayari, iba't iba yung nagiging interpretasyon sa decentralization, lalong-lalo na sa paggamit ng local government code. And so the result essentially is that, if you look at the powers that have been supposedly already clearly outlined under the local government code, madalas hindi pa nasusunod. In fact, if you just go by the 5 devolved functions supposedly, which my favorite example is social welfare. No? Alam nyo, sa ibang bansa, hindi man lang hindi specified na ang social welfare ay local function kasi kumbaga matik na sa kanila yon. In other words, it goes without saying that the best level of government to perform social welfare functions is the LGU. Sa atin, in-specify pa natin sa local government code, pero lo and behold, every year, medyo parang mas lumalaki yung Department of Social Welfare and Development. So yung ibang ahensya, hindi pa natin masasabi na talagang lehitimong, entirely local government function. No? Could be local government-led, no? But social welfare is really essentially a local function. So anyway, I'm just giving you an example, no? Wherein so many of the supposed devolved functions remain basically dependent on national government. No? So let me go to the next slide. Alam nyo, yung decentralization kasama ng democratization na nangyari noong 1986 yan. Isa yan sa mga political reform. Alam naman natin na nagkaroon tayo ng diktadurya at isa sa mga paraan para maiwasan na magkaroon ulit ng diktadurya ay magkaroon ng mga features katulad ng decentralization. Decentralization essentially is a political reform but it is also an administrative reform. No? Ibig sabihin nun, political reform kasi dahil may sariling mandato ang mga lokal na opisyal, hindi sila dapat masyadong maging dependent sa national government. That's the main thesis of decentralization in the first place. And so it's supposedly departure from the previous overly centric, centralized public administration in the country. And so, in fact, if you're going to look at how decentralization has fared in the, more than 3 decades or so, naabot natin kung hindi tayo centralized noong 1992, no, yung simula ng taon na pag-implement ng 1991 Local Government Code, baka hindi pa natin nakikita yung mga potensyal na maaring makita sa iba't ibang probinsya, sa iba't ibang lugar. Hindi pa natin siguro makikita na marami pala tayong pwedeng mapuntahang lugar, makapasyal, no? At ma-promote natin bilang tourist destinations. Hindi din natin makikita na marami pala tayong industriya na pwede nating i-develop further, no? And compete in the international arena even, no? So take note, for example, no, many industries in fabric, in fashion, in food, no, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, nung nagkaroon tayo ng decentralization in 1990, parang doon na nag-stop, no? Yung reforms have not been sustained. I will show you, no, how this has been assessed, no, by various studies and assessments through the years, no? So instead, it has been subject to political dynamics, contingent to political dynamics. In fact, tuwing magpapalit ka ng pangulo, parang doon makikita kung ano ba, maganda ba ang magiging relasyon ng national sa local. Depende kung nakikita na bagong halal na pangulo, kung mas mainam na makitrabaho closely with the local government unit or to instead do it more with the national government agencies. And even if to top all this inherent limitations, no, basically because of the kind of politics that we have, as I've always been emphasizing, not only in this presentation but in so much of what I've been writing and talking about publicly, no. But on top of that, alam niyo, merong provision sa 1991 Local Government Code, yan, Section 521, na dapat every 5 years merong quote-unquote comprehensive review. Pero alam niyo, sa kasamaang palad, parang wala pa yatang nangyaring comprehensive review. Maraming review na nangyari pero hindi siya comprehensive, at karamihan dito ay third-party led, no, NGO led, like what we've done so many years back before, a government and or an academic institution, no. We've really tried so much, no, to convince our policymakers, our legislators in particular, to go ahead with the comprehensive review. Pero hanggang proposal lang kami nitong nakaraan, no, na-provide ko pa kasi nag-agree yung Committee on Local Government, no. Actually not this last Congress, yung last Congress pa, no. Nakumbinsi ko na we have to really do a comprehensive review. Hanggang sa nakapag-submit kami ng plano kung paano gagawin, nung finally sinimulan, hindi rin nasunod yung proposal. So sa madalit sabi, yung Mandanas ruling simply indicates that the existing mechanism reached the tipping point. Sa madalit sabi, talagang kulang na kulang kung ano yung meron tayo. That local government officials had to resort to filing a case in the Supreme Court, and hence now we're talking about the landmark Mandanas-Garcia ruling, no? So parang yun ang storya niyan. Ngayon, bago tayo lumayo, no? Kailangan nating i-clarify itong mga sa English misnomer, yung mga nakakalito. Hindi ko alam kung nakakalito o talagang minsan maipilit lang. Alam po ninyo, yung autonomy hindi katulad ng independence. At itong kalituhan na ito, itong misnomer na ito, hindi naman natin pwedeng sabihin na kasalanan lamang ng isang level, no? Not just the local government officials, and definitely not just the national government officials. In fact, both. And yesterday, I was really, impressing on BLGD Director Ana Bonagua that I've seen this firsthand. No, when I was asked to take part in the series of discussions with the different NGAs involved in the formulation of the rollout of this Supreme Court ruling, no? So parating merong hindi ko alam kung kalituhan talaga o ayaw lang intindihin. alam po ninyo, yung devolution o granting of powers to the next level of government, hindi ibig sabihin, wala nang pakialam yung isang level dun sa isa. Hindi po tama yon, no? Ibig sabihin, meron lang isang level of government na mas hayag. Sa madalit sabi, mas significant yung role, no, that it plays, no, in the performance of particular functions. Essentially, it's just, consistent with the principle of subsidiarity. No, the matter that ought to be handled by the authority that can handle it most effectively. This is the logic behind decentralization. The main function, as far as the main responsibility, no, as far as particular functions are concerned, are lodged with the local government units for the simple reason that they are in a better position to decide, no, and implement some of these functions. Pero hindi ibig sabihin, wala nang pakialam yung national government sa kanila, no? At lagi nating nakikita ito, lalo na kapag ka merong sakuna. Natatandaan ko pa nung nangyari yung super typhoon, ano? Nire-require pa yung local chief executive to formally write the national government that he is asking the national government to take over, precisely because they were severely affected by the typhoon. Hindi na ko kailangan yun. Obviously, in situations where the local government unit really requires, no, assistance from the national government, it's obvious that the national government should be ready anytime, no, to assist. Hindi naman magte-take over, hindi naman ibig sabihin wala na yung LGU, wala na, tatanggalin na yung LGU officials. Hindi ho ganoon. Essentially, what we're talking about here is intergovernmental relations. It has to be considered a system in which means it's a key, it's an integral mechanism in our decentralization. Actually, isa ito sa mga rason kung bakit kailangan nating balikan yung local government code at ripasuhin. It's good that we've found, no, the institutionalization of this mechanism, intergovernmental relations, in the Bangsamoro Organic Law. No? Yun yung dapat nating ilagay doon sa local government code kapag ni-revise natin. Okay? So balikan natin, paano ba naging storya nung nag-decentralize tayo? Ako, sa tingin ko, kailangan natin balikan ito. We should consider this again as we implement the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. Decentralized na tayo, no? Make no mistake. Ang ginagawa lang natin, tinitingnan natin ngayon ano ba yung kulang at yun ang rason kung bakit nagkaroon ng Mandanas-Garcia ruling. Okay, para kapag ka nag-further decentralization tayo, nagdagdag tayo ng mga poder, nagdagdag tayo ng resources sa baba, this time mas alam na natin kung ano yung dapat gawin. Mas alam na natin dapat kung ano yung priorities, so to speak. Okay? Anyway, so nung nagsimula po yung decentralization, the first time that the very first year that the code which was passed in 1991 was implemented, so in 1992, nagsimula ng series of rapid field appraisals. We have to thank the USAID, no, for supporting this initiative, and at that time through the Asia Foundation. So every year for 10 years then, and then after that nagkaroon ulit noong 2010 kung hindi ako nagkakamali, pero hindi ko na naisama dito sa presentation ko sa inyo, year after year tinitingnan ano ba yung nagiging incremental development. Simulan natin dun sa mga highlight ko. Yung pong yellow, yun yung problems or challenges to decentralization. Yung light green, yung milestones of decentralization, at yung blue ay yung general or observation. Okay? Noong 1995, no, that's 3 years into the implementation of the code. It has been seen, no, in the rapid field appraisals, no, that greater local resource mobilization reached, an improvement in service delivery. On the other hand, the national government agencies had not proactively pursued new roles after devolution. So, 3 years into decentralization, hindi pa masyadong nakapag-adjust ang national government agencies. No? Pero marami pa ding milestone. No? After that, in 1996, the diversity of experimentation as the decentralization process diffused across all classes and types of local governments deepened into more mature management of service delivery. So madalit sabi, unti-unti nang natututo yung local government units. At this early stage, 1996, you can just imagine, we're already in 2022. Now, overall, there is, some amount of success in decentralization. No, there's a new participatory style of local leadership emerging in 1997. But however, a major constraint to further decentralized democratic development was reluctance at the center to change. Kaya natuwa ko doon sa reaction ni input ni Director Ana kahapon kasi it emphasized that the DILG really should always be at the forefront of anything that has to do with decentralization and working with LGUs. Kasi kapag ang pinag-lead mo another government agency that hardly works with LGUs, it's difficult to explain to them why it is fundamental to work closely with LGUs. No? So, by 1998, it was already sense in these RFAs that decentralization is here to stay and that there is continued success in local governance and local ownership of appropriate national programs. In addition, national government agencies, yan na, 1998 nagsimula na silang magre-design how to relate to local government. So may adjustments na. So there were progressive signs towards deepening decentralization, and technical assistance have been formulated matching the local needs of local government units, and therefore it spawned a number of tangible improvements in local governance. So if these findings happened some 22 years back, you can just imagine how far we have gone at this juncture. Siguro kung hindi lang nangyari yung pandemic, baka mas marami pang nagawa na locally ang mga local government units natin. So there's so much hope really, and there's so much to anticipate, especially with the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. Ito yung key points at ito yung na-discuss na extensively ni Dr. Avila kanina. Hindi ho naman ibig sabihin na dahil may Mandanas-Garcia ruling hindi na operative o hindi na, kumbaga paso na, hindi na kailangang sundin ang local government code. Basically, it simply redefines the determination of LGU share from national revenue. Hindi niya ni-revise yung 7160 or the local government code. Pangalawa, kapag dahil ito ay essentially about budgeting, hindi ibig sabihin na ang paraan na dapat gawin ng national government kumuha ng additional budget para punan o gamitin sa pag-increase ng budget sa local government units as mandated by the case. Hindi po ganon. Yung pong budget kasi isang pie lang, it's a single pie. What simply means by the landmark Supreme Court decision is that a larger slice will now be given to the local government units. Hindi dapat magdagdag ng budget, which basically means na the national government agencies will remain as they are and therefore implementing the same programs and projects. Ang mangyayari lang, idadagdagan mo ng pera yung local government units. In the first place, saan mo kukunin yun? Kasi pag gano'n ang ginawa mo, it does not address the problem of overlapping of functions and therefore even unfunded mandates. Okay? So ito, implementing the Mandanas-Garcia ruling means further decentralization and not full devolution. I've already explained to you, the logic behind that. implementation, we still have to be based mainly on the local government code. Again, precisely because it does not revise the local government code. The reason why we're talking about PAPs is for the simple reason that, when you do budgeting, PAPs you do budgeting through the identification of PAPs. And therefore, if there will be additional funding, it can only be by and through the PAPs now being reconfigured to be performed at the local level. Yun ang rason kung bakit pinag-uusapan natin yung PAPs. So kung maglagay tayo ngayon ng example. Alam po ninyo, kaya ina-emphasize natin na hindi natin pwedeng asahan na yung mga programa na ginawa, finormulate sa national government, pwedeng basta ibaba natin, no? Kasi doon na manggagaling yung pondo. Hindi po pwede yung ganoon. Kasi yung pong perspective, the approach at the national level is different from the local level. Sa local level, when you do budgeting, it is almost always that it is more integrated and comprehensive because it is a smaller scale, no, and smaller perspective. In the national level, at the national level, it has to be sectoral because the scope is broader and of course resources available are considerably more. In other words, the priorities are different at the local level. Considerations are different in the first place. The approach likewise is expectedly different as the scope is considerably limited but more specific. The orientation and the circumstances are different. The capacity is significantly lesser at the lower level, but this can be remedied. At ito yung example ko sa inyo. What was raised in the study that I'm citing in this slide is that apparently there will be a vertical imbalance or simply that the resources that will be downloaded will result to difficulty in remaining consistent with the sharing formula as provided for in the local government code, not to mention the impact on the financial resources at the national level. Sa tingin ko hindi naman po ganon. So magandang example yung sinite doon sa study referring to various infrastructure projects, no, that essentially mas malaki daw yung mapupunta sa provinces. Hindi naman kailangan. You see, again, let's not be confused with the additional budget with PAPs. Ang kailangan muna nating gawan ng paraan dito yung additional budget. Okay? So, halimbawa, yung mga provincial roads, definitely, no, hindi ibig sabihin sa yung pondo dyan sa provinces lang pwede mapunta. Pwede nating i-farm out with the municipalities and cities that will all benefit to a particular infrastructure project. Example lang po ito. What can be done then? That's the reason why what's being emphasized in the presentation of Dr. Avila is that planning should be strengthened to the point that the planning should not only be limited to a particular LGU. Inter-LGU planning can be promoted, including what? Integrated planning with the concerned national government agencies. Ang system po nito, in fact, Section 25 of the code, if I'm not mistaken, emphasizes that local government units can in fact pool their resources together. Okay? This is what is called interlocal cooperation. I'm not sure how much we have how much local government units have made good use of that particular provision. I can cite a good number, but there are these examples are still quite limited compared to the number of LGUs we have all over the country. Kung mama-maximize po sana natin yon, mas maganda, no? Not only for infrastructure, but even for the exercise of corporate powers of the local government units. Etong mga ito hindi pa hanggang ngayon for some reason has not been maximized by many local government units. Sa madalit sabi, what we're talking about is an integrated approach to governments. No? And this is consistent with the examples explained to you by Dr. Avila earlier. No? First off, we cannot expect that the rollout can be uniform. We have to take note of the unique characteristics of each LGU, especially that a good many are in fact coastal. May mga coastal, may mga highlands, no? May mga landlocked, and so on. So, but iba yung mga pangangailangan niyan. Okay? So, maraming challenges. Unang-una, we have yet to really strengthen intergovernmental relations. Fragmented LGUs and weak as a result, weak planning. I'm sure you're familiar with the regional development councils, and I'm sure many of you have experienced sitting down in the RDCs. How much of the proposals arrived at or formulated by the RDCs actually find their way to national budget or to the national plans? Baliktad po ang nangyayari. In fact, yung national plans nauuna tapos ikakascade sa LGUs. Hindi ba po pwedeng merong planning sa national level, meron ding planning sa local, and we meet at the regional level? Yun yung kulang no? So, kung magagawa yon, doon natin makikita na yung tinatawag na steering function at the national government will really be, can really be a reality to match with the implementing function of the LGUs. No? Essentially, when we say steering function, the national government should be facilitating development, no? And assisting the implementing functions of the local government units. This is the reason why planning is where we start. It is the key to the success of the rollout, from redefining the roles of each level to the establishment of the Committee on Devolution, which is already provided for in the EO at the national and regional level. Okay? Essentially, it should result to the promotion of interlocal cooperation. So, IGR is planning, and planning is key. No? As we implement the Mandanas-Garcia ruling, establish muna natin asa na ba tayo ngayon. Let's do a benchmark para alam natin na yung pagdating ng Mandanas-Garcia, yung pag-implement nun, yung paggawa natin ng decentralization transition plan, yun ang rason kung bakit nagkaroon ng milestones after a while. No? The benchmark should allow us to determine the objective and imagine what will be the end point. Okay, what's the outcome? Okay, of new initiatives as a result of the implementation of the DTPs based on the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. Again, if I may, emphasize that PAPs are the basis only as far as determining how much will be downloaded as a result of further devolving functions as originally provided for in the local government code. The local government code, again, if I may emphasize, remains the main reference for decentralization. No? The EO is there only as a guide for the implementation of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. But even the implementation of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling will have to still refer to the local government code. Again, we also have to clarify that PAPs cannot be absorbed as originally as designed for implementation at the national level, but may be implemented at the local level if joint planning can be undertaken. In fact, when we speak about PAPs in the first place, significant lang siya during transition kasi essentially the PAPs or the programs and projects will have to change in time, okay? Which eventually will really be locally formulated. So existing law should be reviewed and revised accordingly. So in other words, goes without saying, marami talagang limitations yung local government code. At habang ini-implement natin itong Mandanas-Garcia ruling, should give us more impetus to push for not only a comprehensive review, but a revision. Let me end by giving you this illustration. Alam nyo, at the end of it all, the reason why there's always this push and pull in governance is that there's always this debate. mas magaling kami kasi nakikita namin lahat. Actually, walang nakakakita ng lahat. Palaging nagdedebate na, uy, mas nakikita namin yung tama kasi nandito kami sa baba. Sa taas naman, ganun din. Mas nakikita namin kasi broader yung perspective natin. But actually, reality is comprehensive. What you see is only relevant to your particular vantage point. You're not really sure how much the other side actually sees and how much of what the other side sees that you don't see. So essentially, this Mandanas-Garcia ruling should further invite us to look at decentralization, look at governance in general, and understand this time completely the significance of intergovernmental relations. Or in other words, the way by which local government units work with national government agencies and vice versa. Yun po, magandang hapon and I look forward to an engaging discussion later.
All right. Again, thank you so much, Professor Edmund Tayo, for that elucidation as to what the Mandanas-Garcia ruling really meant, as well as its underlying significance towards the aspect of local governance in the Philippines. Just a few takeaways. Further decentralization has been the description of Professor Tayo on the implementation of Mandanas-Garcia ruling. The autonomy that is being pertained does not mean full independence. It is more on granting of power to the next level of the government. And we also encountered the integrated governance, which is the key moving forward and making the most of the landmark decisions. And we ended on the idea that system reforms ultimately is fundamental. Now, to further shed light on our subject for today, both on first and second discussion, the Mandanas Garcia ruling, its significance to local governance, and its ostensible implications, may we call on the panel reactors. For our first panelist, she has dedicated 35 years of service in both private and government service, both in the legislative under the tutelage of former Senator Joey Lina and also at the executive branches, both at the national and local government levels. She consulted for DILG and DNR and for the city of Manila. She is also the first executive director of ULAP since its inception in 1997 up to 2005 and the executive director of the League of Provinces of the Philippines from 1996 to 2005 and from 2016 up to the present. She also worked with the private sector in various capacities, recently appointed as member of the CHED Technical Panel for Public Administration from June 2020 to June 2024 and currently studying Juris Doctor at the Arellano University School of Law. She finished her bachelor's degree in economics as a Dean's Lister from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, Quezon City in 1986. Her her current main advocacy is on protecting the gains of fiscal and local autonomy of local government units. It is with our pride to present to you the League of Provinces Executive Director, Ms. Sandy Paredes.
Ay, magandang hapon. Can I be permitted to share screen? Share my screen. Okay. So I have 5 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes. So just some comments on the two presentations made by Mr. Tony Avila and our professor, my idol, Edmund Tayo, Professor Tayo. So kami naman on the part of the LGUs, no? So yeah, let me just clarify that the decision was really a consolidated one. Dalawang petition yan, ano? Yung kay Mandanas po, i-include yung Bureau of Customs Collection. Tama po kayo, mga presenters. And naniningil din si Governor Mandanas ng shortfalls from 1992 hanggang po sa ngayon. And we estimate it to be around 1.5 trillion. No? But since the court granted partially granted his petition to be prospective, we are still of the opinion and the legal official position of the league that yung prospective niya, i-explain ko mamaya, shall be from the date of the finality of the decision. And si Congressman Ted Garcia, who was replaced by Bataan Congressman Joet Garcia, yung anak, yung petition po ni Governor Garcia dealt on the questioning the constitutionality of Section 284 of the Code. At wag lang daw based sa internal revenue but from all national taxes. Yan po yung voting na nangyari. If you will see, 3 dissenters, but they merely dissented on the Garcia petition. They no longer, they did not dissent on the inclusion of the BOC revenues under the Mandanas Doctrine. Highlight ko lang po dyan, one of the associate justices who ruled in favor of the decision is now the LPP President, Governor Presbytero J. Velasco Jr. of Marinduque. He is one of those who wrote the concurring opinion. And Governor Velasco, since he is privy to the discussions in the Supreme Court with regard to this case, sabi ni Justice Velasco, there is nothing in the fallo. Tama po si Tony, no? Wala sa dispositive ruling ng court na magkaroon ng full devolution or that there be more responsibilities to be assigned to LGUs na naaayon sa sinasabi ng Executive Order 138. Yung ruling, talagang diniscuss lang niya yung modification ng Section 284. Yung estimate po ni Governor Escudero, nung in-estimate po niya yung mga PPAs, you call it PAP, no? Pero programs, projects, and activities, pareho lang yan, PPAs, it runs to about 1.3 trillion kung bubusisain talaga yung GAA, no, for 2022. And that's 7 times more than the 185 billion actual increase or 24% increase sa LGU's NPA o NATA for 2022. Dapat tama si Professor tayo, dapat ilimit lang talaga sa Section 17 ng Code. Because as a general rule, an EO cannot amend a substantive law. And it cannot amend the local government code, not even surpass or be contrary to any jurisprudence. Actually, yung EO 138, parang minitigate niya yung impact ng ruling with regard to the fiscal space ng national, but at the expense of the fiscal space of the LGU. Diba, pagka meron tayong tinitignan o win-away, it should always be for the benefit of the government. But the local government units are part of the government. And if the LGU space, fiscal space will be yung mababawasan yung ating rightful share, in a way, that's detrimental to government also. So kasi yung may decision, may jurisprudence na rin on control and supervision. We invited all the PPDOs, no, Prof. Tayo, to attend kasi we want to emphasize na yung pagplano ninyo ng DPPs, kailangan optional yan, yung mga pinipresent ng NGAs na mga PPAs or programs, projects, and activities na gusto nilang i-transfer sa LGU. Nasa sa inyo kung gusto nyo tanggapin o hindi. You have all the discretion kasi may jurisprudence na tayo on control and supervision. Ito yung mga mini-mention lang ni Prof. Tayo. Gusto ko lang i-highlight dun sa policy ng code. Dapat meron talagang end resources. May kasamang resources dapat kung merong ibababang mga programs, projects, and activities. Also, hindi komat may ruling na may additional funding na ang LGU, titigil na ang national government na magpondo ng mga basic services. Kasi nasa batas natin, may provide or augment. So ang linaw, so it's not, the Supreme Court did not say that bawal na ang national government mag-allocate ng financial assistance to LGUs for these basic services. At kung magbababa ng mga PPAs, dapat may funding support from the national government. Napakalinaw sa ating local government code. yung itong binigay na example ni Tony, if you will look, 452 billion yung total na PPAs na hindi i-discontinue na for 2022. Ang comments namin dyan, if you look at the JA 2022, tumaas siya by 500 billion. Pero yung additional NPA increase of 185 billion, maliit lang yan kumpara dun sa 500 billion. At yung budget ng mga agencies na yan, hindi naman nag-decrease. Yung allocations nila sa PPAs or sa PAPs at about na mga 452 billion, na-realign lang nila to other items in their budget. So, yun na nga, ito, emphasize ko ulit, yung sinasabi, yung estimate ni Governor Escudero, running for senator now, estimates that aabot ng mga 1.3 trillion. At ngayon, ililimit na ng national government yung technical assistance, yung financial assistance to LGUs sa 4 to 6 class LGUs. Eh may mga first and second class tayo na ang bababa rin ng poverty incidence sa mga lugar na yan. So, hindi kami, we have been asking the national government, huwag lang ilimit sa 4 to 6 kasi one, yung income classification ng 2008, hindi pa yan na-updated. So, kung ibe-base yan sa 2008 level, 99% ng probinsya first class na. 99% ng cities first class na. So, dapat iayos muna nila yung income classification na yan. On the control and supervision, ito yung sinasabi kong jurisprudence, Drilon versus Lim. Pag supervision, they may not prescribe their own manner for the doing of the act. Wala silang judgment on the matter except to see to it that LGUs follow the rules. So yung PPAs, yung DTP ninyo, yung annual investment plans nyo, talagang kayo ang masusunod dyan sa pagplano and it should be approved by the local sanggunian. Yun lang naman hindi pwedeng national ang nagdidikta kung anong programa ang dapat ninyong gawin sa inyong mga sarili-sariling jurisdiction. Tignan natin ito yung isa sa mga comments namin dun sa implementation by 2022, no? Yung motion for clarification ng Solicitor General, pinapa-clarify and include niya sa dispositive ng desisyon ng Korte na 2022 umpisahan yung pagbabayad ng all taxes. Anong sinabi ng Korte Suprema? Dininay nga yun Denied. The motion for reconsideration of the SOGEN was denied. Kaya sabi ng Supreme Court, yung adjusted amounts niya can be deemed effective only after this ruling has lapsed into finality, which is reckoned from the denial of the OSG's motion for reconsideration. From then onwards, yan yung sinasabi ni Justice Velasco. Ito, nung sinulat nila ito, from then onwards and as ruled therein, the just share should be based on all taxes. Oo, hindi na nga kami hindi na tayo sisingil sa 1.5 trillion na IRA shortfall from 1992 onward. Pero yung prospective application niya, dapat from the date of the finality of a decision. That is based on the rules of court. No? Ang minodify lang naman sa decision ng korte, tinanggal lang yung internal revenue na phrase. No? Para mag-conform siya sa constitutional provision ng Section 6. So ngayon, hindi na siya IRA, National Tax Allotment na yung tawag. And itong pag-delete ng phrase na internal revenue, according to the Civil Code, Article 7 and 8, nagre-retroact siya, sabi ni Justice, from the date the law was passed. It's deemed written off. Parang hindi siya sinulat kasi unconstitutional. It has been declared as unconstitutional. Magmula nung pinasa yung batas ng October 10, 1991. So, prospectively, nung naging final siya ng June 10, 2019, the-delete na yung phrase. So, pag-compute nila ng IRA ng 2019 at 2020, anong pinagbasihan nila? Deleted na yung phrase na internal revenue. Dapat umpisa na, katulad ng 1991 Local Government Code, binis nila yung 1991 IRA dun sa 1989 collections 3 years prior. Hindi yung umpisa ng 2019 at bibilang ka 3 years after, saka mo i-implement. Hindi naman after yung wording sa batas, di ba? Prior. Ang linaw yun So, meron kaming meron tayong hindi pagkakasundo sa pag-implementa ng desisyon. na beginning July 1, 2019, kasi after June 30, 2019, yun yung prospective. Pero ang naging posisyon ng national government is to begin only on January 1. Ang basis nila, yung EO 138 nakalagay dyan. Doon sa whereases ng EO, hindi man lang kinote yung buong provision ng pertinent provision ng desisyon at pinalabas na parang umpisa lang ng 2020. Na-deny nga ng Supreme Court yung kanilang request na loan. Yun yung sinasabi natin. But itong June 30, July 1 natin, it's based on the entry of judgment. Ito yung entry of judgment, papakita ko lang very briefly. Ayan, no, ang linaw that the same has on June 10, 2019 become final and executory. In all cases, pagka merong ganyang finality na, implement agad, execute agad. Hindi yun yung 3 years after. Hindi ganon ang pag-execute ng decision. In fact, nag-pass kami ng so many resolutions urging the national government to implement it all immediately upon the finality of the decision. Just to give you an idea, 24% lang increase. Kasi sinasabi nila noon 50% increase. Mali po yun. Yung kung IRA po ng 2022, 773 billion po yan. Pero with the decision, 959 billion. Or 185 billion increase. Pero kung titignan nyo itong BIR, tignan po nyo yung BIR, dati po yung IRA 1934. Ngayon, naging 1913, bumaba pa, imbis na tumaas. Bakit? Dahil napakaraming deductions na binawas ang Department of Finance from the national tax base. Ito, for example lang, itong certified ng Bureau of Customs ng 2018, may gross revenue siya na 606 billion. Dahil 2018, no, itong collections ng 2018 para sa NPA natin dapat ng 2021 dahil 3 years prior. So nawalan tayo ng 242 billion kasi yan ang 40% niyan. Yan ang impact ng implementation only in 2022. Kung titignan natin, yan yung 242 billion. Kung magmula 2019, mid-year o third quarter, kulang ng 79 billion, sa 2020 kulang ng 184 billion, at 242 billion naman sa 2021. So parang lumalabas, kahit po sa 2020, yung dami ng deductions, dati po ang deductions na ginagawa nila prior to the Supreme Court ruling was only 3% of the gross revenue. Ngayon po, umangat po yan ng 16% deductions of the gross revenue. And the league has written the DOF to correct that. In fact, may shortfall tayo na 540 billion na we are trying to collect. That's 19% of the GAA. So, hindi masyadong malaki yan. Kumpara sa, mas malaki pa nga yung interest payment natin sa foreign debt. So yan, just to give you an idea, 16% sa time ni Duterte yung ating algo. Kumpara natin yan sa ibang bansa. In Southeast Asia, 23% ang average share ng subnational government, and in Asia Pacific, 34%. So kung before the ruling, 16%, after the ruling, 19%, but kung itatama nila yung computation, abot yun ng 20%, at ang target natin is 23% para naman comparable tayo sa Southeast Asia man lang. Paano natin gagawin yan? So, ito na, nag-uumpisa na tayo ng People's Initiative natin. Yung proposal ni Professor Tayaw at ng Committee on Constitutional Amendment na 50-50, in-adapt lang natin dito yung 50-50 na People's Initiative para umangat tayo yung NPA na maging 23%. So, sa pagbabago ng Section 6, Article 10 ng Constitution, ilalagay natin dyan kasi hindi na natin maaasahan ng Congress na dagdagan pa yung 40%. Gusto nga nila babaan pa yung 40% to 30%. Not less than 50%. However, Congress may enact a law further increasing. So, yan yung ating alternative. Ito yung mga deductions. Sa example lang, black grant from BARM. Bakit ibabawas nila yan? Pareho lang yan sa IRA. Yung BARM, hindi nga yan tax measure. Ibabawas mo yan. So, yung mga items na inisa-isa yan ni Justice Velasco per his legal opinion. hindi dapat binawas yan sa national tax base. So naniningil pa tayo ng 35 billion. Dahil ayon sa ruling, hindi lang yung customs collection, marami pa tayong dapat share. Yung 50% sa VAT ng ARM, 30% sa national tax ng ARM, 60% sa national wealth, 85% sa tobacco. Kaya nga national wealth, hindi lang yung host LGU ang may share. Lahat ng LGU may share at dapat kinukuha yung 40% dun sa share ng national government. At kaya undervalued pa yung estimation natin na 540 billion na shortfall. So, in fact, hindi ito lingid sa kaalaman din ng karamihan. Isa sa mga ruling ng Supreme Court sa dispositive part, sinabi ng Korte na it is beyond debate that the inclusion of the just share of the LGUs in the annual JA is unnecessary if not superfluous. Hence, the just share of the LGUs in the national taxes shall be released to them without need of yearly appropriation. So, hindi na raw kailangan isama sa GAA. So, kung meron ma'am pagbabago o pagtatama sa pag-compute nun, the DOF can motu proprio change it. Yun, that's the position of the league. And recommendations, finally, gusto na ng mga LGU at ng Liga, magka-moratorium muna sa mga unfunded mandates kasi ang sabi ni Justice Velasco, oo nga, automatic release. Tapos ang dami-dami din yung lien at holdback sa IRA namin or sa NPA. Naglalagay kayo ng ganyan, statutory obligations, pati yung EO 138, dami-daming PPAs na ipapasa sa atin. Tapos maliit na lang ang discretionary percentage ng LGU to allocate for your own priority programs. So paglalaban po natin. Yung equity fund o yung growth equity fund, okay sana. Kaso 3 probinsya lang ang mabibigyan, 8 cities. So ang proposal talaga is i-create na yung LG Equalization Fund as proposed by Professor Tayo as part of the Committee on Constitutional Amendments. So para mas may impact. Another is ibigay yung quarterly release. So mapapansin ninyo mga LGU, bi-monthly po nire-release ng Bureau of Treasury sa accounts ng mga treasurer ninyo. Bakit bi-monthly? Nasa batas quarterly release. So kung sana dapat po ibibigay na nila yung January, February, March na quarterly share ninyo, tingi-tingi po nire-release sa ating mga LGU, dapat po quarterly release. Para nung nagka-pandemic, yung inyong disaster preparedness fund o yung calamity fund na 5%, at least 5%, yung leeway nyo, 3 months. Hindi yung leeway lang ng half month. At parang ginawa tayong 15-30 kapareho ng NGAs. Hindi naman tayo ganon. Nasa batas yung papaano i-release at nakalagay ng quarterly release. Wala po sa batas o legal basis yung bi-monthly release. So, dapat inaano din natin yung share natin ng mga LG sa national wealth, yung mga other sources, katulad ng sa PCSO. Ayan, dapat probinsya na dapat ang proposal natin ang grant ng franchise sa mga STL kasi province-wide yan. So additional revenues yan sa LGU para hindi masyadong dependent ang provinces sa NATA or IRA. At provide mo, tama si Prof. Tayo, dapat yung RDCs natin bigyan ng mas maraming pondo para sa mga priority programs and projects na na-identify ng RDC. Sa ngayon, parang 3% lang ng RDC projects ang napopondohan. Napakaliit. So I end with this by quoting a decision of the Supreme Court in Biraugo versus the Truth Commission. Alam natin na maganda intention ng ating pamahalaan, but the end does not justify the means. No matter how noble and worthy of admiration the purpose of an act, but if it means to be employed in accomplishing it is simply irreconcilable with the constitutional parameters, it cannot be allowed. Yan yung constitution eh. Yan ang fiscal space natin. Dapat irespeto nila yan. So yun lang po. Maraming salamat. Yung ating nata, nataas na, natama na, natatagalan lang po. Ayun. Thank you.
Again, thank you so much to our first panelist, Ms. Sandy Paredes. Now heading towards our second panelist, it is with our pride to present to you the former DILG Director for Bureau of Local Government Services and of Region 4A, Mr. Manuel Gotis.
Thank you. Si Kyrel ba yun?
Yes,
Thank
po,
you,
sir.
Kyrel. Congratulations to Professor Tayaw and Professor Avila for that very comprehensive and thought-provoking presentations. My comment will add to the provocation. And okay, Sandy pala, congratulations din doon sa presentation mo. Ganda ng mga comments. Talagang dapat ang lagi nating isipin yung interest ng local governments dahil sila yung nasa front lines of providing basic services to our constituents. Alam natin lahat na ang sharing ng IRA, hindi na pala ngayon IRA, NTA na, National Tax Allotment, is 40% of the National Internal Revenue Collections. At tumaas na yun ngayon because pursuant to Mandanas-Garcia Supreme Court ruling, nakasama na yung Bureau of Customs Collections. So lumaki yung pie, lumaki yung budget na paghahatian ng mga local governments. But I always entertain the question, tama ba talaga yung 40-60 sharing? Given the prevailing conditions, iba na yung mundo ngayon kaysa na 19, kailan ba yung local government code? Several 30 years ago. Iba na ngayon ang sitwasyon ng mundo ng Pilipinas. Siguro talaga itong sharing na ito ay dapat ng tugunan, but it takes a lot of political will. And it takes national political will at in coordination with local governments kung paano ayusin talaga lahat ito. We all know also that there are four, ang alam ko for devolved functions pero nabanggit mo kanina 5. Ang alam ko kasi agriculture, social services, health, environment, at ano yung pang-5 kaya? May nakalimutan ako.
Hindi kasama ang environment at saka education, ang tawag ni Tatay Nene, tangentially devolved, which is our local term for shared function. No, yung tourism kasama sa devolved function.
Tourism.
Tourism, okay. Agriculture, may alam ko infra tapos health. No?
Health nga, nabanggit ko ng health. Pero ang reality ngayon, at nabanggit ni Sandy kanina, hindi bumababa ang budget ng national government. Maintain yan at hindi kasi may mga national government, may mga development projects sila na ini-implement sa local government siyempre. At example yun ng yung presentation ni Tony kanina, yung isang agriculture project na they will cooperate with local governments. So ganun pa rin ang maintain na, ganun pa rin ang structure. So ano ang magagawa dito? Will it take the cabinet, the president of the cabinet? Will it take the continuous prodding of the local governments na tingnan talaga yung intergovernmental relations, tama ka Ed, from national to local governments. At tingnan din siguro yung interlocal relations. If you look at the local government code, yung roles and responsibilities ng province, city, municipality, and barangay, hindi masyado maliwanag. To me, I think marami ang overlapping overlapping functions doon. And if you put on kung ilalagay mo na lens na yung budget ng local governments, mahirap na kukulangin palagi ang budget ng mga local governments. So siguro we have to revisit and strengthen the functionality of the local development council. Yung local development council, mayroong provincial development council, may city municipal development council, may municipal development council, may barangay development council pa yata. Sa provincial level, sino yung members ng provincial development council? Ang pagkakaalam ko, yung mga mayors kasama. So, to me, my personal opinion is this is a highly politicized development council. Kasi ang tingin ko diyan, pagkalaban ng governor yung may ilang mayors diyan, hindi yan mag-a-attend ng meetings ng Provincial Development Council. So siguro may mga tama-tama may mga PPDOs tayo, PPDCs tayo na participants. Siguro yung mga provincial development coordinators natin should shape up further, working behind the scenes kung paano talaga ililink yung development objective ng province para yung mga programs and projects ng component cities and municipalities ay talagang nakatugon doon sa iniisip sa development objective ng province. Hindi ko alam kung magagawa ito, pero to me, it's one approach na pwedeng ma-strengthen natin yung interlocal relations. Kasi dapat natin isipin, na ang pinagsisilbihan ni gobernur ay nandun sa barangay. Ang pinagsisilbihan ni mayor, ni city and municipal mayor, ay nandun sa barangay. Si Juan de la Cruz. So siguro i-focus na natin lahat kung ano talagang pangangailangan ng ating mga constituents at sabihin na natin, Governor, anong taya mo? Mayor, anong taya mo? Barangay Captain, anong taya mo? In terms of agriculture, social services, health, environment, and other concerns. Sa era formula, lagi kong ini-entertain itong yung inequality ng 23, 34, 20 sharings. Tapos yung population, land area, and equal sharing. Dahil may mga cities tayo na mayayaman na nakakatanggap pa rin ng internal revenue allotment. 4 years ago, I think 4 5 years ago, according to the Bureau of Local Government Finance, meron tayo dati ng mga 10 or so cities na nagbabudget surplus pa. Budget, I'm sure, tumanggap yun ng internal revenue allotment. So, mabuti na lang may tinawag si Sandy na equity fund. Pero sa akin kasi, hindi masyadong permanent yung equity fund. It is always subject to political, influence, yung equity fund. Pero kung ilagay na lang talaga yung iliwanag na lahat yung sharing formula, tingin ko mas stable yan. Yung sa planning, nabanggit ni Tony yung Comprehensive Development Plan, Comprehensive Land Use Plan. There are only 2 plans mentioned by the Local Government Code. And that is the Comprehensive Development Plan and the Comprehensive Land Use Plan. Bakit importante ito? Dahil ngayon nga may karagdagang budget tayo, so we have to maximize that budget para sa mga constituents ng mga local governments. Comprehensive Development Plan, ano bang timeline ito? Is it 5 years? Is it 6 years? Parang 2 term ng local chief executive. Ang alam ko dati yung Comprehensive Land Use Plan 10 years to. At yung HLURB is helping local governments to revise the comprehensive, formulate and revise the Comprehensive Land Use Plan. Dahil talaga namang nagbabago din yung economy, yung local economy, nagbabago yung may maraming mga dagdag na development challenges. So kailangan talaga baguhin din yung land use plan dahil may nag-urbanize na ng mga local governments. Sa Comprehensive Development Plan, ang alam ko dito noong ginagawa namin yung 2007 Joint Memorandum Circular, we asked NEDA to lead in providing technical assistance to provinces in the formulation of their Comprehensive Development Plan. Alam niyo, nung 2007, nung nagkanda kami ng survey, nagulat kami dahil parang naawa kami sa local governments. Lumabas doon sa survey namin na there are 25 plans na pinapagawa sa local governments. 25. And if you try to figure out the Planning and Development Office of a fourth-class municipality or city, ano lang ang tao doon? The City or Municipal Planning and Development Coordinator plus 2 or 3 or 4 staff. Yung iba pa dyan, errand ang ginagawa. So how do you require the local governments to really prepare a very good comprehensive development plan na ita-translate pa yun into local development investment program kung kadami-daming nire-require sa mga local governments na plans. So hanggang ngayon, hindi ko lang alam kung nabawasan na yan o lalo pang nadagdagan. I hope nabawasan na. So in all these discussions, tama si Professor Ed na talagang yung internal governmental relations ang dapat reviewin from the top down to the barangay. Dahil hanggat hindi natin naayos itong relations na ito, kahit tumaas pa ang budget ng lahat ng national local governments, palagay ko hindi masyadong effective and efficient yung paggastos ng resources. So, yun ang aking brief comments dito sa presentations ni Prof. Ed and Prof. Abila. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Manuel Gothis. And of course, for our final panelists for today's discussion on the Mandanas-Garcia ruling and the local governance in the 2022 election. It is with our pride to present to you the founding chair of San Beda University Political Science Department, Professor Gian Ines. Let's give him a warm virtual round of applause.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Yuri. Thank you, PILG-LOGODEF, Hans Seidel Foundation, and of course, Professor Tayo for having me here as a reactor. It is an honor to be with you in this event. Um, I totally agree with what Professor Tayo said, that there is a need to strengthen intergovernmental relations, and to what Dr. Avila said, that there is a need to reconcile the devolution plans of the national government and the local government units. But I'd like to focus my reaction on two questions that are germane to recent developments. These questions are actually an attempt to juxtapose the Mandanas ruling with recent developments. One is political and the other is economic. The first question is for Professor Tayaw, sir. The consistent survey frontrunner, sir, Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is a candidate of Partido Federal, which was formed to support the calls for federalism in the Philippines. And in an interview early this year, candidate Marcos was quoted as saying that a federal system fits, quote unquote, it fits the Philippines, although he clarified that there is a need for further discussion regarding this matter. Now, here's the question, and it is hypothetical. Suppose, sir, that Marcos Jr. wins the presidency by a large and unprecedented margin, which means that he will likely have a significant political capital to push for a major structural change, such as federalism. Then to what extent will the shares of local government units under the Mandanas ruling be changed or altered in a federal setup? In your opinion, sir, will the implementation of the Mandanas ruling be short-lived, considering this possibility? My concern here is that, yes, we need to plan how to strengthen intergovernmental relations. We need to exert efforts on how to reconcile devolution plans. But then again, there's a possibility of change hovering above these plans and above these efforts. The second question is for Dr. Avila. Sir, Dr. Avila, at present, our national debt is pegged at 12 trillion pesos. And we are still recovering from the pandemic. The Mandanas ruling has given LGUs a larger share of the pie, as explained by Professor Tayaw. My question is, how will the implementation of the Mandanas ruling affect our nation's capability to pay the 12 trillion debt? And I am asking with the hope that our country will not default like Sri Lanka. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you so much, Professor Ines. Kai?
And to all our panelists, if you wish po to ask questions pa to our speakers, Professor Edmund Tayaw and Dr. Antonio Avila, for further refinements, please proceed po.
You mean open forum na tayo?
Okay po. Thank you so much to our panelists today, Ms. Sandy Paredes, Mr. Manuel Gotes, and Professor Gian Ines for that very substantial and insightful point of clarification and supplementary discussion concerning our subject matter. Now, proceeding to the next part of our program, the public open forum session. Before we begin, please be reminded of the following open forum reminders.
If you wish to ask questions during the open forum session, please raise your hand and wait for the hosts to entertain your questions. Also, you may send your questions directly to the program hosts through a private message or message it directly on the Zoom conference chat box.
You may also use the chat section to react and give opinion concerning the open forum discussion. But please remember to keep your comments and statements relevant to the assigned topic.
If you wish to ask a question on a particular speaker, please state or mention it upon sending the queries.
And lastly, use appropriate words and be in proper behavior at all times. Respect the speaker and panelists by listening attentively to their responses and discussions.
Again, to our participants, if you wish to send your questions or kindly raise your hand.
Bago tayo mag-entertain ng questions sa participants, Yuri, Kyrel, let me answer Professor Gian's questions muna. No? Well, in a nutshell, ayoko nang umasa na matutuloy ang system change. No? Sino man ang manalong presidente kasi nakailang approach na tayo dito. No? Alam niyo, natatawa na si Sandy, si Clarice at saka si Sir Tony. No? And parang alam niyo, nung bago ako sa Local Government Development Foundation, sabi ko pa dati kay Doc Meyer, no? The former GTZ Country Director, siguradong marirevise natin yung code na yan. Madali lang naman yan, no? I was talking of my previous experience working with the two houses of Congress. But apparently, 2022 na, 2007 pa ako executive director, awan ni Batman, walang nangyari sa revision ng code. No? So, and we're just talking of the revision of the code, which is, of course, probably the most highly political piece of legislation that has been enacted. And in fact, we're thankful that it was even enacted. The way I saw it, at least as far as the documentations in both houses of Congress, actually medyo naging mahirap yung pagpasa ng batas na yan noong 1991. No, kaya nga naging matindi yung paggastos ng tawag dito, pork barrel nung panahon ng dating Pangulong FBR kasi para maipasa itong mga landmark legislation, kasama dito yung party list law na awa ni Batman medyo sakit ng ulo din natin ngayon. Ano? So kung yung mga batas na ito nahihirapan tayong iripaso, hindi man lang natin magawa yung comprehensive review, I'm not sure regardless of yung mandato naman na Gian, no, na sabihin natin na unprecedented at sabihin natin na mahihigit ng 50%, no? Although of course we're jumping the gun, no? Meron pa tayong mga 17-18 days before election day, no? To my mind, that would be first, no, historically. But bear in mind that in 1998 and 2010, we elected presidents with overwhelming percentage of the vote, no? 6 na milyon yung lamang ng Pangulong Duterte noong 2016, no? Noong 2010, halos ganun din ang lamang ng dating Pangulong Noynoy Aquino at ganun din nung panahon ng dating Pangulong Erap Estrada. Bukod tangi si dating Pangulong Noynoy Aquino na hindi nagmuestra or did not do any what's this initiative to revise the 1987 Constitution. Pero lahat ng Pangulo, no, merong inisyatibo na baguhin man lang yung o i-amend man lang yung particular provisions in the 1987 Constitution, and none of this proceeded. So I still hope and pray. I can't it's not like we have any choice but to hope and pray and continue advocating for system change. Otherwise we will see more and more of this kind of archaic politics. Yung pangalawang komento mo, mas magandang masagot ni Dr. Avila yan bilang ekonomista, pero sasabihin ko lang sa iyo na mas malaki pa nga ang utang ng mga malalaking bansa katulad ng Estados Unidos. Hindi ibig sabihin yan na dahil taon-taon umaangat ang utang natin, mababangkarote na tayo. Hindi tayo Argentina, hindi tayo Sri Lanka, medyo malayo pa, no? Yun namang tinatawag nating utang, kaya nga may tinatawag na debt to GDP ratio. No? Hindi ka naman pwedeng basta mangutang lang. Kailangan tinitingnan din ng mga financial managers kung hanggang saan yung pwedeng utangin ng isang bansa. Hindi ka naman makakautang kung yung mga nagpapautang sa tingin, hindi ka makakabayad. Actually, masyadong napopoliticize siyang pagdagdag ng utang natin kasi sa totoo lang, ay wala akong alam na bansa na walang utang. No, at wala akong alam na bansa na hindi tumataas ng tumataas ang utang taon-taon. So the question now really is how best or how able, no, is our financial managers able to manage, no, the economy. So yun lang.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much, Prof. Tayo. Doc Avila po.
yeah, thank you. Thank you, Prof. Gian, for your question. Actually, maraming mga Pilipino ang, yeah, as Prof. Ed said, na apprehensive about the debt of the Philippines. But first and foremost, in fairness to the economic managers, they've been doing a good job in containing our, of course, our budget deficit, as well as our debt management. No? As I mentioned earlier, I think the debt to GDP ratio is around 57 or up to 60% of GDP. And still, ang ano ng World Bank dito is magkakaroon na ng problema once umabot na to ng 75 to 80% of GDP, no? In the case of Sri Lanka kasi I think it's 100%, 110% of their GDP ang ano nila and they defaulted on kanilang pagbayad ng mga debt obligations nila. Kaya nagkakaroon ng crisis doon. Which I think it will not happen to the Philippines because as I said earlier, our economic managers are doing a great job in containing the deficit and also in sourcing funds for our COVID pandemic expenses. And another factor is that all credit rating agencies, no, now either maintained yung kanilang D+, yung magandang investment grade ng Philippines, or kung meron man na nagkaroon ng konting pagbaba, but in most rating agencies, na-maintain natin yung ating investment rating. No? So, I think in terms of getting, credit or loans or bonds, I think hindi masyadong mataas yung ating babayaran ng mga interest because we have a good credit rating. No? Kasi kapag mababa credit rating mo, talagang mataas ang interest na babayaran mo. No? So, then another one, and I think that is precisely why the economic managers are very insistent on opening the economy. No? Sana wala nang, the best solution really is to open up the economy. Kailangan natin itong mga economic activities, kailangan natin itong mga businesses, kailangan natin ng mga consumers to spend more. And of course, ang isang magandang balita dito is according to some yung World Bank, ADB, and the other agencies na nagpo-project ng ating growth, no, ng GDP, maganda yung kanilang projections na probably around 6 to 6.5 or even 7%, no, which means na balik tayo sa pre-pandemic growth rate, no. And pagka ganun ang mangyayari, our capacity to pay our debt is, mas malaki yung ating capacity to pay because just simply kung tumaas yung GDP natin at hindi na masyadong tumaas yung ating debt, so ibig sabihin mas mababa yung debt to GDP ratio natin, no? So that I think there are some of the good points that we have to think of, and hopefully really we will be able to recover from the pandemic in order that we will not encounter serious problems in the future. Kung magtuloy-tuloy pa kasi yung COVID na problema yun ang magiging problema kasi saan kukuha ng pera ng gobyerno, no? I think, and in relation to, that's why siguro naging very cautious naman nating economic managers regarding the implementation of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling, no? Na kailangan talaga ma-manage ng husto yung fiscal sustainability. ng ating gobyerno in order that we can pay our debt. And lastly, unlike in other countries kasi, do you know that ang ating utang or debt ay mga 80, I think 70 to 80% ay domestic. So yung mga 20 to 30%, yun lang ang na abroad international. Pero karamihan ng ating debt dito ay domestic. Thank you.
Again, thank you so much, Doc Avila and Prof. Tayaw. We have a question from one of our participants po. Given the opinions of our presenters and the comments of the panelists, what should the LGUs do as regards to the implementation of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling, specifically the implementation of the devolution transition plans? Will the League of Provinces of the Philippines contest the implementation of the devolved functions?
So I think I'll answer that.
Yes po, ma'am.
Sige, mas maganda si Sandy nga.
So the question is, will the League of Provinces contest the implementation? We're not naman contesting the implementation of the devolved functions because, well, only if these functions are already in Section 17 of the Local Government Code. Kung nandyan na yon, ang sinasabi lang ni Justice Velasco, yung mga bagong functions, responsibilities na wala sa Section 17, hindi pwedeng i-amend ng EO ang isang substantive law like the Local Government Code. And the national government cannot impose certain programs, projects, and activities upon LGUs because it is the discretion of the LG as PPDOs. Kayo ang bahalang kung gusto ninyong, kasi remember, these PAPs are being implemented only in selected LGUs, not in all LGUs. So selected lang yan. And since they will discontinue that, they want all LGUs now to implement their programs, projects, and activities. Hindi naman, like for agriculture, hindi naman lahat ng LGU merong agrikultura o sa hindi naman lahat. So there's no one size fits all. Kaya nga sabi ni Prof. Tayo, kayo ang nakakaalam kung ano talaga yung mas priority ninyo sa inyong mga probinsya o sa inyong mga lugar. What Justice Velasco said is that we will, pagdating ng bagong administrasyon, okay, we will be pursuing the writ of execution ng Supreme Court on the Mandanas-Garcia decision, particularly to clarify when the date of reckoning is. Kasi dininay na ng Supreme Court yung 2022 yung prayer ng SOLJE na i-include sa dispositive yung 2022 implementation. That has been denied. And yung pinagbabasihan nila is it was well taken daw, well taken by the Supreme Court na 2022. When you say noted, kasi in a decision of the court, noted just means na kahit yung sa atin, yung kay Mandanas-Garcia, sabi namin, bayaran nyo mula 1992, sabi ng Supreme Court, noted. Ganon din yun, noted, pero ito yung decision. So the question is, what should the LGUs do? You plan as what is in accordance to what your priorities are. Technically, Prof. Tayo, we have not seen not all DTPs of NGAs were given to us, no? So it's not even approved yet yung mga DTP ng NGA. So this year gumawa ang mga probinsya ng mga DTPs nila according to their own priorities. It was not, the DTPs of some NGAs were not even considered. Just to give you an example, not all LGUs nag-increase ang kanilang NTA. May mga LGU dyan na dati nabibigyan ng financial assistance sa PAPs na yan, yung PPAs na yan, na ngayon ititigil na. So in effect, bumaba pa yung kanilang revenues. See? So it's not, the Mandanas ruling did not automatically mean an increase. Merong maraming LGUs din na nag-decrease pa kasi hindi na sila mabibigyan ng financial assistance ng NGAs. Ganon kalala. Ganon kahirap In fact, sabi nga ni Governor, hindi na ako mag-mention ng Governor, basta sabi ng isang Governor, you mean, Sandy, mas magaling pa ba sila? Kasi meron ng mga PPAs ang LGUs na ginagawa, di ba? May PPAs na kayo. Tapos pareho din naman yung PPAs ng NGA. Alangan namang bibitawan ninyo yung PPA ninyo at ipipilit sa inyong ipa-implementa yung kanilang PPA. Similarly, kung may personnel silang ibababa sa inyo, hindi ninyo kailangan tanggapin. Hindi optional nyo yun. Kung gusto nyo tanggapin, okay. Kung hindi, okay din. Hindi kayo pwedeng pwersahin tanggapin yung mga yon. Kung wala sa budget, remember by 2023 bababa ang ating NPA kasi bababa ang tax collection by 11.4%. So we cannot, it's difficult to sustain with the impending decrease of the NPA. And just to answer the question kanina on the impact of the ruling, will it be short-lived? I don't think it is going to be short-lived. Why? Because we increased the benchmark. Kung dati ang IRA 775 billion, ngayon 995 billion siya o 959 billion. So kung yung change to a federal setup, they cannot use the 775 billion as benchmark. The benchmark now is the Supreme Court ruling. Kung if the shift to a federal form will mean a share less than what we are receiving with the advent of the Supreme Court decision, that's not feasible. So now the benchmark is higher. We set the benchmark higher. So if Congress will pass an amendment to the code saying from 40% gagawin namin 30%, ayan, the Mandanas ruling is short-lived. But that is why we have to take it upon ourselves to push for people's initiative, particularly amending lang Section 6, Article 10 of the Constitution, in anticipation na nga of that. Because hindi na tayo aasa na tataas pa yan ng 40% ng Congress. Tayo na, we take it upon ourselves to increase it through an amendment of the Constitution, through people's initiative. We will be pushing that in the next administration.
Again, thank you so much, Miss Sandy Paredes, for that answer po. Yuri, take it away.
And I think there are no more questions. And once again, thank you so much to our esteemed speaker, Professor Edmund Tayo and Dr. Antonio Avila. Also to our very insightful panelists, Ms. Sandy Paredes and Mr. Manuel Gotis and Professor Gian Ines. Now, to finally end this event, may we now call on the Philippine County Representative of Hans Seidel Stiflang, Mr. Gotts Heineke, for his closing remarks.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes po.
Narinig naman ako.
Loud and clear po.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Because I had problems with this mic earlier. Good afternoon to everyone, and of course, a good afternoon and thank you to all our esteemed speakers and panelists. This has been such an insightful discussion, and we can only thank our speakers for the very comprehensive discussion, very fascinating presentation of a topic that's filled with numbers and so looks so complicated, and bringing it down to a level that is more understandable, with these clear explanations that are more understandable in the local context and from the point of view of our local executives in ways that we can relate to. So there's a mention of these intergovernmental relations, these interlocal relations, and how the reconciliation of the devolution plans ought to be made. So we hope this discussion has been and as enlightening for you. I understand our participants this afternoon are local executives, so I hope this has been very informative for you. We noticed that there has been quite a number of requests for the presentations. That to me represents quite a measure of interest in the topic. So thank you very much for uh, your interest, and of course, thank you to the Menta Institute for Leadership and Governance, Clarice. Thank you to Professor Edmund Tayo, Local Government Development Foundation, and of course our collaborating partners, the League of Cities, Provinces, and Councilors, the Bukidnon State University, Mindanao State University, Ms. Beverly. Thank you to the Department of Political Science of San Beda University, the Political Science Students of Mindanao Network, Power of Filipino Youth, the DOTBE law offices for supporting this activity. And understand that our resident representative, Mr. Betsainike, some of you were able to meet him in our session yesterday morning. We're looking forward to more of these forums in the future, right? So we look forward to that. We understand there has been quite a presentation of interest in these. And if you like this activity, please make sure to participate in the online survey. It's a very short survey that is to learn of your interest in this activity, what you found we have done well with, and what you feel we might be able to improve in our future activities. And so once again, thank you very much to all our speakers, Sir Avila, Sir, of course, Professor Tayao, Professor Gian, and we have our League of Provinces, Ms. Sandy Paredes. And okay, I hope I have been able to recognize everyone, and of course to our PILG team, along with Ms. Mary Ronda and the team of Yuri and Kyrell. Thank you very much, everyone. We look forward to the next activities. A good afternoon to you.
Again, thank you so much, Ms. Caroline Lee, speaking in behalf of Mr. Gotts Heineke, the Philippine country representative of Hans Seidel Stiftung, for that inciting remarks to end today's fruitful discussion. We would like to ask the participants po to open their cameras for a photo opportunity.
Let me just thank you all our PPD also attended whom we invited. Maraming salamat.
Oo, maraming salamat po sa inyong pag-attend. Sana sa mga susunod pa mga event. And I hope to see you in person soon.
Yes, on behalf of the Pimentel Institute for Leadership and Governance, of course, we would like to say thank you so much for attending our seminar. Actually, personally, this is the topic is close to my heart because for the information of everyone, it reminds me of my mentor, my boss for almost 2 decades, the late Senator Nene Pimentel. Because actually, for your information, siya po yung lawyer ni Governor Mandanas dito sa case na ito. So that's why it's very close to my heart yung topic natin ito ngayon. So siguro nga naiisip ko nga na siguro kung nandito pa siya, mas marami pa siyang suggestions kung paano ba mai-implement talaga siya properly. Kasi talagang for almost 2 decades of working with him, nakita ko po yung parang concern niya sa mga LGUs na magkaroon talaga ng fair share sa national resources or wealth ng ating country. So that's why thank you so much for attending this seminar. To Professor Tayao, thank you very much for partnering with us, and of course, the Hans Seidel Foundation. Thank you so much on behalf of the Pimentel Institute for Leadership and Governance. Hope to see you in our next sessions po. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Clarice, for adding
you,
that.
Claire.
Thank you. And of course, we extend our thanks as well to Commissioner Gwen Dana. Thank you very much. And Mike.
Thank you so much po. Photo lang po. First
Photo.
page. 1, 2, 3. Second page po. 1, 2, 3. Third page po. Ayan, wala na pong naka-open camera. Yuri, take it away.
Again, we would like to extend our gratitude towards our esteemed speaker, Professor Edmund Tayo and Dr. Antonio Avila, to our panelists, Ms. Sandy Paredes, Mr. Manuela Gotes, and Professor Gian Ines, and most especially to our guests and participants who have been with us and give their interactive participation for today's discussion.
Once again, I'm Kiriel Tolete.
And I'm Yuri Idolian and Jewel Elefane earlier, and we have been your hosts for today's session regarding the Mandanas-Garcia ruling and the local governance in 2022 election.
Again, thank you so much, and we are hoping to have you with us again in yet another discussion on local governance and beyond. Stay safe, everyone.